What's the difference between a guard dog and a guardian angel? No, it's not a joke. It's a question that Tom Holloway and Judy Avero have been asking themselves for years. You see, Judy and Tom had a very strange encounter that left them wondering about many things, including the fine line that separates life and death. In 1977, Judy Avero needed some routine dental work, and so she made an appointment with Dr. Tom Holloway.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great, how are you doing?
I needed a new dentist, and I'd heard about Tom from my mom, and she said he was very good looking, and I was attracted to him right from the start.
The feeling was mutual. Judy and Tom began dating, and it wasn't long before she moved into his house in a suburb of Sacramento, California. That's where she met the neighbor's black lab, Gus.
I really don't think your neighbor's dog likes me.
Oh, it's just Gus. He's always barking like that. So
And Gus continued to bark at them at every available opportunity, always protecting his small patch of yard.
No matter what I did, whether it was even just take out the garbage or go out to pull a weed, Gus would be there, standing guard,
Gus.
doing his job to bark at me like he'd never seen me before.
Every time we would come out into the backyard, Gus would be there barking at us, and it became a joke between us.
You know, you figure out sometime, maybe he'd learn who we are,
But before Gus could learn who Judy was, she and Tom ended their relationship, and she moved to Hawaii. Still, they remained close friends.
I had been gone for about a year. I was coming back for a vacation. I called Tom. He picked me up, and we came over to his house. I'd been out of the scene, and we hadn't spoken about Gus, or I hadn't even thought about Gus for a year.
Wow, this Gus. Hey, boy.
Gus wasn't barking, and that was very unusual.
Hey, doggy.
Good boy.
Hey.
And I was saying, oh, good dog, Gus, good dog, Finally, you're remembering who we are and letting us be in peace. And then we went back inside. We didn't think anything odd about it.
It wasn't until a few days after Judy returned to Hawaii that Tom learned how truly odd their experience had been.
Phil.
Hey, Tom.
I ran into my neighbor that weekend. He was working in his yard, so he came up and we talked at the edge of the driveway. And I complimented him on how his dog had learned to recognize me and had stopped barking at me.
When was this, Tom?
Thursday.
And he just shook his head and he said, "That's impossible."
Tom, that couldn't have been Gus. We had him put to sleep on Monday.
Wow.
And they discovered he had parvo. So they said the most humane thing for him was just go ahead and put him to sleep.
So the dog had been dead 3 days before Judy and I saw this dog on Thursday.
Tom's first thought was to call Judy.
It was such an unusual thing that had happened.
Hello?
And I had to let her know that we had just seen a dog who had died the weekend before we saw this.
I was just speaking with Phil outside, and he had to take his dog and put him down. So the other day, what we saw was, I guess, kind of a ghost.
Wow, that just gives me chills just to think about it.
Judy was astonished, but they were both certain of what they'd seen. It couldn't have been another dog because the neighbor's yard was completely fenced in. Besides, they recognized Gus.
There's no question that this particular dog was the dog that I had been used to seeing. There was only one Gus, only one black Labrador in that yard.
Tom wouldn't see Gus again until a year later, the day after his neighbor moved away.
Gus?
I had a feeling that he was somewhat bewildered, so I spoke to Gus.
They don't live here anymore. Go find them.
And certainly you feel somewhat foolish about talking to a dog, especially a deceased dog.
Go home. Go find them.
But Gus seemed to understand what I said, and he turned and he walked about 10 feet and just sort of dissolved into the air. I never saw Gus after that day. That was the last time after the neighbors had moved.
Wow, this Gus.
Tom and Judy have often thought back on that day they saw Gus sitting quietly by the fence. It's a memory that will stay with them forever. Not so much for how strange it was, but for what it means.
The miracle for me would be having a hint that what we live is not all there is. There's something beyond, and nothing is as final as it can be.
I think that Gus stayed in his position as guardian of the house because he had a bond with that family, and that was his obligation, his responsibility.
They don't live here anymore.
The miracle was, to me, that life exists after what we call death. And maybe love is a power that can bridge that gap between life and death.